Now, in the politics, they're going to tell you it's the other way around. Why? Because the patriarchs of Rome are ruling, so the God principle is masculine when in nature it's really feminine. So they get you to deny or violate the laws of nature, then nature kicks your butt. You keep wondering the devil doing stuff, you're doing it to yourself because you don't know divine law. And you violate divine law in the name of your belief systems that you've adopted from Rome, catching hell, blaming the devil, which is the scapegoat. Do you understand what I'm saying? Once you understand this thing, it permeates society. That's why you got to understand how sorcerers work. Because you ain't going to beat these sorcerers unless you know what they're using. Read on.
In Soviets, the guardian was accountable for profit.
Now, go to minor and then go to minority. Now, you do that, sis. Minor and minority. Now, keep in mind what you just read in wardship.
Minor. An infant or
Infant heirs. Infant, come on.
an infant or person who is under the age of legal competence.
Stop. Competent and incompetent. Legal competence. It ain't got nothing to do with numbers. Our people think it means numbers, don't they? Why? Because somebody told them that, didn't they? No, because they're legally incompetent. So they're classified as a minor collectively as minorities, and it's a legal condition. Read on.
121. A term derived from the civil law, which describes a person under a certain age as less than so many years. Minor vigilante, V-I-G-I-N-T-I, vigilante, okay. Minor vigilante. Okay, Latin. Minor vigilante. Quinanus, okay. One less than 25 years of age. Okay, yep. Also less. Of less consideration.
Of less consideration. That means if you're a minor, a minority, you're of less consideration in society. So they don't take you serious. Because you're already classified as incompetent.
Yep,
so they're not going to sit around and debate with you.
Yep. Lower.
Now, I want you to understand this concept. This is the whole point. Now, go back to wardship, right? So until C is 16, he 21, right? Which means at that time, i.e. the heir can reclaim the inheritance, and then the corporate ward has to be accountable for the profits, right? However, if they accept the status of minority, it doesn't matter the age, no matter how old they get, they remain under the wardship. That's the trick of the brands. Do you understand how it works?
Yes, because it says here, it's basically going on to tell you that it's lower, and it also says a person of inferior condition.
Exactly, inferior condition. Now go to status. Go to status. Now put this all in place, and then we're going to go back and address this rift.
Did you do minority? No, I didn't get. Am I going to do minority next?
You don't need to. The concept is made.
Okay.
Go to status. See, my point is to make sure if you got the concept, I'm satisfied.
So when they call you boy, that's what they
That's what they mean. It really is.
Yeah.
You know, our people get upset, but they don't understand that's a legal strategy. It's not just, our people take it as an insult, but they're actually talking about your status. Really. And mean it.
Okay.
Because if you know better, you're going to object. And if you don't know better, you're not going to object. And if you object relative to taking it as an insult, you still are minority. But if you correct him to your status, then he'll respect it. Do you understand what I'm saying? Until you honor your mothers and your fathers, your days economically on this planet will be cut short. You can check, you can bet on that. They're living off your virtues. Now read status, read it well. Read it strong, read it well, make sure the baby's here. Status. And then go down below, read past the case law, Then go down below, and I want you to pay attention to this part, particularly that part. And then go back to even people thinking that they can claim the sovereignty with the Uniform Commercial Codes, with property and stuff. Yeah, right. Go ahead, brother.
It says status, standing, state, or condition. The legal relation of individual to rest of the community.
You can put the in there because remember, legal is brief. So put it there, make sure everybody understands. The legal relation.
Of individuals to the rest of the community.
Yes.
The rights, duties, capacities,
And the incapacities.
and the incapacities which determine a person to a given class. A legal personal relationship, not temporary in its nature, nor terminable
At the mere will.
at the mere will of the parties, with which third persons and the
state is
are
concerned.
concerned.
Now I want you to skip and then go down to the bottom relative to that status also applies to what? And this, make sure this is clear with you.
It also means a state.
Read that again.
It also means a state.
Now what is that it that they're talking about? Status also means a state.
Because it signifies the condition or circumstances in which one stands with regard to his property.
Stop. So that means if all the other stuff is not correct, and you sit around talking about owning property and this and all that stuff, and your status is not correct, that's your standing. And if you don't know that, don't even talk about property because you can't know nothing. That's why I must be registered to the state on the wardship. Now you understand how it ties together? You understand what I'm saying? So once you understand that, you understand. Now let's go back to ex rel, ex relation, ex rel. You read that. Now remember, when you're communicating with them relative to that straw, that they've been operating that corporate entity on your behalf on the wardship and claiming your property, i.e., houses, mortgages, cars, registration. So let's talk about how to deal with that. And this is also a method on how you communicate with them concerning these matters. What is it? Ex relation, yeah. Ex rel is short for ex relation, which is French, which is actually a derivative of Latin. All right, which means on the information. So we'll break that down. Read it.
Upon relation or information, legal proceedings.
Make sure that's clear. Back up.
Okay.
Upon
relation.
Upon relation.
Or information.
Or information. Now go ahead.
Legal proceedings which are instituted by the Attorney General in the name and behalf of the state.
And this is how the state speaks for people under wardship.
What?
You know, they're determining you think it's your funds, and they're speaking for you. And then they're going to give you a loan of your own stuff and then charge you 6% on top of it. Just consider it. Now read on.
But on the information and at the instigation, and at the instigation of the individual who has a private interest in the matter.
Now, you have a private interest in the matter, but you're not necessarily that strong. Now, can you argue for it? Read on so that you can understand the dynamics, the political dynamics.
Are said to be taken on the relation, ex relation, of such person who is called the relator or
Yes,
villain.
the relator, which is very important. Understand the relator, that principle, because a lot of times when people are giving you so-called sovereignty papers or they talk about UCCs, they will not discuss with you the relator because then it gets serious on how you can speak for that straw versus how you can assume to speak for the straw when you really can't. That's why a lot of people who do UCCs ultimately lose because you must be national. You can make that argument with the Attorney General of the United States. Now deal with it. Read on.